This is Tales from the Pros, where business leaders and influencers share their stories of inspiration, struggles, and successes. And I'm your host, Michael Giorgio. Hey everyone, welcome to Tales from the Pros, and this is Michael Giorgio, your host and co-founder of Imaginovation. My wonderful guest with me here today is a serial and successful entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of Crowley Carbon, and he was listed among one of Ireland's top entrepreneurs and was nominated in the 2011 Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. He successfully grew numerous businesses from startup to millions in annual sales through effective business planning, creative sales techniques, and innovative marketing. He is a visionary and a great businessman known for his passion for excellence, integrity, and motivational leadership. And he is known to solve problems and provide a positive impact on our planet. Please welcome Norman Crowley. Norman, I really appreciate you being here with me today. It's nice to be able to connect. You're in Ireland, I'm here in North Carolina, so this is cool. Technology, right?
Yeah, it's good to be here. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's amazing to be sitting in the Dublin mountains, looking at a crystal clear picture of you. So it's incredible. Yeah,
it is, isn't it? And it's really nice to just be able to connect. And you know, these we were talking a little bit before that, you know, podcasts give us these opportunities to just be able to meet each other. Like now I can see you, I've met you. It's, you know, such an honor to meet someone like you and just be able to connect and build that relationship, and for you to share your story it's an amazing thing. So
yeah, thank you.
No complaints, right?
No.
Yeah.
And nobody would care if we did complain. So
yeah, you're right. I know. Well, you know, I did a lot of research on you, Norman. You have a really good story, and you know, when I know when your team connected with me, and some of the things I read about you and saw some of your videos and presentations, and I believe you have a very inspiring story to tell, and I love business storytelling. This is why we built this podcast, is to really showcase business leaders' stories and present their challenges and their successes and just everything that they went through, right? And I think it's good to present that the true reality of what it means to build a business, because I think you know, right? It's not all glimpse and glamour, the cars or whatever it may be, right? It's not what you see on Facebook. It's very real. There's a lot of challenges, and I've been through that. You've been through that at very high level. So that's what we want to talk about today, and talk about your journey. So essentially, Norman, can you talk to us about what got you here today? You know, were you always building businesses? I know in your 20s you built some very successful businesses, right? And you were able to sell them. So how did you start that process?
Yeah, well, I was born in 1970. So by the time I came of age, I guess it was early to mid 80s. And my dad was a farmer working very hard, but there was never any money. So I don't know whether the trigger for business and entrepreneurship was, I think it was a combination of my dad being quite entrepreneurial, because when you're working on a farm and you don't have much money, you fix everything yourself or it doesn't get fixed, right? So you have to be quite imaginative. And he was quite imaginative. And then also we were poor all the time. And so just getting, you know, and we used to watch US TV. We used to watch like Dallas, and you would see these guys and gals with amazing Mercedes and huge houses, and we had nothing, you know. And so you knew that there was another world out there where people made a lot of money. And so, the burning desire started early to make money, have my own business. So I set up my first business when I was 15, which was a welding company. So I used to weld, farmers' sheds and stuff like that. And so by the time I left school at 17, actually I left school on my 17th birthday, I already had like 7 or 8 people working for me. And so there was a burning desire to really make money, get freedom. And the good thing about that was you did get freedom. If you worked hard, you got freedom at quite a young age. Like when I was 19, I was making more money than any of my mates. Like, and I was working harder than they were too, but I was, we had cars when nobody else had cars, and things like that. So it was paying off from a young age. And then when I was about 20, I just got sick of just the physical exertion of welding, like doing it every single day, same thing all the time. And so we were lucky enough to sell that business to a local property developer slash engineering company. And so I got a taste, I guess, at the age of 20 of knowing what it was like to sell a company and have a few bucks. Um, and I always loved technology and software. And so decided to set up a technology company, not knowing much about technology or software, but liking the space a lot.
Right.
And first of all, we built up a business that sold hardware. So we sold servers to companies, and we set up LANs, local area networks for companies. And then in 1997, we discovered the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And we became obsessed with the internet the minute we saw it, even though at the time the internet was slow and everything took a long time. But we were just fascinated with the potential. And so we pivoted the business to become an internet company. And in 1999, we had about 170 people. We had offices in the US and the East Coast and West Coast and across Europe. And we were building corporate internet sites for kind of, you name it, big companies. And we were very lucky that in 99, the two incumbent telecoms companies in Ireland were both floating at the time. And they were both being told by analysts that they needed an internet story because internet was the hot thing, basically. And so they both approached us at the same time to buy our company. And so we were lucky enough in May 1999 to sell the business for, at the time, quite a lot of money, about 20 million bucks. And so at the ripe old age of 28, I retired. Yeah. And so, but the mistake about retiring is if you're built to be an entrepreneur, retirement is really a mirage in the desert. It's not real, because you're built to work. And I should have known that because my dad passed away a couple of years ago, but he passed away 2 months before his 90th birthday. And he was working up until a week before he passed, so the DNA is about work. And so when I retired, I just got frustrated over a couple of weeks, and I didn't really know why, but the truth was I just wanted to go back to work. And so in 2000, we set up a company called Inspired Gaming. And again, it was in a space we didn't know much about. It was in the gambling space. What happened was I was in London meeting a friend of mine who worked with a betting company called William Hill. And I met him in one of the betting shops. And as I was waiting for him, I was looking at the machines that people were playing. And these were like old slot machines like you'd see in Vegas 20, 30 years ago. And I was fascinated that they hadn't moved to digital, And I said it to my mate. I said, why don't you move these things to digital? And he was like, well, if you're so clever, why don't you build a digital machine? And I was saying, well, why don't people build digital machines? And he was saying, well, people wouldn't play them. And I said, but in Vegas, people play digital machines. And he was like, nah, English people are different. And I was like, I don't think English people are different at all, actually. So not knowing anything about it, we decided to build a connected digital gaming machine. And the first one we built was crap. Didn't take any money and broke a lot. And by version 2, we had a machine that was taking kind of 3 times more money than any other gaming machine. And so that business grew incredibly quickly. From 2000 to 2006, we went from 0 to 2,500 people. And we went from 0 revenue to $500 million in revenue. And so
2,500, you said employees?
2,500 employees, yeah. Oh. And we floated it on the London Stock Exchange in 2006. Yeah. And it became a global business. That sector is called server-based gaming, and we were one of the inventors of that entire space, server-based gaming. And now every casino in the world pretty much has a server-based gaming platform. And so then one of the kind of life-changing things happened in 2007. We were public on the London Stock Exchange, growing like crazy. And then an Icelandic hedge fund offered to buy the business for $1 billion. And when somebody offers to buy the business for $1 billion, it's impolite to say no. So we said yes. And so that process took about 6 months, big transaction. And but as that transaction was happening, the whole financial world was falling apart. Lehman's was happening, and the stories were just getting worse and worse. But our transaction,
what year was this?
That was 2007. Yeah.
Oh, just before 2000. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And it like shit was just getting worse all year, basically. And we thought the transaction would fall away, but it didn't. Curiously, everything looked like it was going to happen. And so my business partner was going to stay in the business. I'd had enough of the gaming sector after kind of 7 or 8 years, and so I was leaving. So literally, when we signed on the dotted line, I was gone the day after. And then so all the legals are done, everything is done, and we're just waiting for a phone call from the lawyers to go and sign, and that was it. And the buyer phoned and said, it ain't happening, we're done. And Iceland was in big trouble, every private equity company was in big trouble, and it was all over. And so that was a horrible time, because in January of 2008, we picked up the pieces, got back to work, and then there was a smoking ban in the UK came into force, which meant you couldn't smoke in gambling premises, and smoking and gambling are pretty closely related. And so it caused big problems for the sector. We were heavily involved in the sector, so it was serious trouble, and the share price fell off a cliff because of the recession and smoking ban. But then we slowly rebuilt, actually. So we, by June, we had won the national lottery bid for Italy for gaming machines, and we won another one in Brazil, and we'd done some big deals, and the share price started to come back. And it was just from December until June was the worst possible time, worse than you could possibly imagine. And then so the whole business came back, and then I woke up one morning in September and I couldn't feel my hand. and I went to the doc, and they thought it was something quite serious. They thought it was like some kind of neurological disorder. It was either serious or seriously serious.
Yeah.
But it turned out that it was just kind of hyper stress. And at the time I was about, well, in stone, I was 19 stone, whatever that is. It's about 300 pounds. And so I was a big boy, and I was flying around the world. So I'd get up on a Monday morning, fly to London from Dublin, every third week fly to Hong Kong, do 5 cities around Hong Kong on a private jet, and then every 12th week fly to Sydney, spend a week in Sydney, and then fly home.
Traveling.
Yeah, I was growing up traveling. And and so I just had a bit of a realization of what the hell was I doing all this for. So I went to my business partner and I said, hey, I'm out of here. And we sold the business for $500 million. So he did a management buyout that went really well, actually. And so I left with a good bit of cash. And so then, because you have the entrepreneurial disease, at that time I didn't take any time off. In fact, I was plotting the next business for the last couple of months while I was in Inspired. And so then I knew that I was going to do another business. But I wanted to have an impact in the world. I didn't just want to set up another business, buying something for $1, selling it for $2. And so we set up, I wanted to have an impact, and the biggest impact you can have is climate change. And because it's one of the most existential threats in the world, right? There are 3 existential threats: nuclear winter, which I can't really do much about. And the thing we're experiencing a mild version of at the moment, which is germs. And then the third thing is climate change. And
It's a scary thought, and yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
love what you guys are doing, but oh yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, it doesn't bear thinking about. And if you think too much about it, you become
Mhm.
paralyzed. But actually, it turns out we can do a lot. And so we started working on climate change. And cut a long story short on that, where we are today, 10 years later, we've got a big energy efficiency business called Crowley Carbon. So Crowley Carbon saves energy for some of the biggest companies in the world. So 3 of the top 5 food companies, 7 of the top 8 pharmaceutical companies, some of the biggest oil and gas companies in the world. This year, we'll save our customers about $150 million in energy. And by 2025, we'll be saving our customers about $2 billion a year in energy. So, and that's very much an engineering business. It's got some sexy Internet of Things software that tracks every single thing our clients do in terms of energy. And then we have some businesses in our energy sector around that. We own our own insurance company that insures the risk that we don't hit our savings target. And then we also have a financing group called Cool Planet Capital that offers financing if the customer doesn't want to finance the project, then we'll finance the project. And so that's our energy group. And then we have transport. And in our transport group, we have a bunch of intellectual property around electric cars. So cooling technology that cools batteries. But our most sexy thing that we do is we've partnered with 3 of the top 5 car designers in the world. And we're rebuilding their most famous car as what we call a hyperclassic. So these guys built and designed these cars in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And they could never build them perfectly at the time because the technology wasn't there. And so now we're rebuilding, redesigning those cars with those designers as what we call hyperclassics. And we're launching those hyperclassics in September, actually, in a major announcement. Yeah. So, and the purpose of that is to obviously to build some very expensive cars and to make margin out of them, but also to inspire. If you think of you as a kid or me as a kid, you always had a poster of a car on your wall, right? And imagine if the poster on your wall was a green electric car, but also one of the fastest cars in the world. So that's what we're building.
Wow.
And also a bit like Elon Musk, although we don't ever want to build high volume. So we, ultimately we want to build about 50, 100 cars a year. Obviously very expensive cars, but and we're huge admirers of Elon, obviously. But we want to use those cars to inspire the next generation as to what's possible, and also particularly for the US market, like people in the US always go, oh, look, you can't beat your V8, right? And actually you can.
Yeah, you can.
You
Yeah,
completely can.
oh yeah.
And so what happens?
People should tell
Yeah.
Elon Musk that. I'm sure he'll have. That guy's a genius. I'm sure he can.
Yeah, he's a
on it all
genius.
day.
Yeah, no, we're huge fans of his, and Tesla supply us with technology actually.
That's cool.
And so the idea is that what happens if you show a dyed-in-the-wool muscle car freak a car that will absolutely mince any car that he can put up against it, then maybe that person begins to think that the world is changing and that and that there's an opportunity in climate change.
That'd
And
be
then
an
the
interesting
final
conversation. Yeah.
and then the final thing we do now is education. So in order to educate people about climate change and to give people a different message about climate change, because the message that we've been fed for 40 years about climate change is a real stupid message. Basically, it's a message of, well, if we want to save the world, we have to sacrifice and we have to suffer. And in 2020, that's just not true. Like on every one of the serious climate challenges, energy, transport, food, the modern solution, and the solution we have now is just far cooler. It's cheaper, it's cooler, it's better than the alternative. Like, don't anybody tell me that a Tesla is not sexier than any other car you can come across, right? In terms of energy, solar, like
Yeah.
the latest pricing on solar is cheaper than coal. It's cheaper than gas now, and gas is pretty cheap.
It
So
really is a sexy thing if you think it is, because you're driving a
absolutely,
nice looking car and
yeah,
you're
yeah,
playing a role in saving the planet, but we just need billions
absolutely,
of people to do it, and then it'll be a
yeah,
big
yeah.
change. So
Yeah, there's nothing sexier than that. So, but yet, if you listen to Greenpeace and these guys, it's all about who do we blame today? It's the oil companies today, it's the Republicans tomorrow. And so we felt that a new message needed to arrive, which was, let's not even discuss blame. Let's not discuss even how serious it is. Let's just tell you about the coolest shit you could possibly imagine.
mhm.
And if you get attracted to the coolest things you can imagine, then you will move towards the light, and we'll all save the world together. And also, there's a message for the kids, which is, if you get into science, if you understand this stuff, then you can be part of saving the world. You can be the modern version of Tony Stark, right?
Yeah.
And that's very exciting. And it amazes me that we have this message. This message sells very well. We have a foundation that sends this message out, and yet nobody else copies the message. And that amazes me. Like, I saw the latest version of our curriculum for 14-year-olds this morning, and I was just laughing my ass off at this. Like, this is the funniest, most exciting piece of education. I was just watching our team present this to me, and I couldn't wait to see the next thing they were going to present. It was really exciting.
You should see what they talk about in business. It's so they're so
Yeah,
behind. It's
no,
not relevant.
completely.
There's no
Yeah,
relevance at all.
no,
It's
no,
just,
no,
but
no. Well,
yeah.
even when my daughters were in high school, and and what they were being taught about business was just dog shit, and teachers had no interest in bringing in entrepreneurs, letting the entrepreneur tell their story.
Mm.
Heaven forbid that somebody would be inspired. It's very frustrating.
It is. Yeah, it's you're so right, Norman, about that. There's such a lack of accurate and real education, especially with all the youngsters now, and they're the
Yeah.
future of the world.
Mhm,
We need
mhm,
to educate them and
mhm.
tell them what's
Yeah,
reality. It's
yeah, and even like, I like Twitter. I like Twitter a lot. It's where I get a lot of my information from. But like, I call it the hate box. Like, every time you go into it, like, people are just hating on each other all the time, and we have so many problems in the world to solve, and so many opportunities to make money. What's the point in wasting your energy just hating on some other guy? Move on.
I know. Amen to
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we
Mm,
keep we
mm,
keep thinking about talking about the problem and blaming him instead of actually
mhm,
executing the solution,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
It's a big
Absolutely.
issue. And
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna ask you, Norman, with you and all the businesses that you started, I love all the ideas, all the concepts, and I could see how you sold them and it's wow, it's a really amazing story, and I love what you're doing now with Crowley Carbon because I'm an advocate for environmental, and I do believe there are a lot of environmental issues. I know you probably come across some people that don't even believe in it,
Yeah.
especially in this country.
Yeah.
There are people who
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but I
Mm,
believe in it, and I know it's real, and global warming does exist, and it's a big problem, and we need to work holistically together
yeah.
to try
Yeah.
to try to solve it. It's an issue, and we
Yeah.
have to attack it urgently.
Yeah. I think the way you sort it is you appeal to people's greed. You say, look, I'm just going to get you electricity that's 10 times cheaper. I'm going to get you food that's 10 times healthier, that's half the price. And then let people decide, and leave the rhetoric about climate change out of the
Yeah.
equation. Yeah. Yeah. Just
solve
sell the
solve a
opportunity.
problem in their home, and then they're going to
Yeah.
start eventually they're
Yeah.
going to be like, oh, this is actually not bad, this is pretty cool, I'm
That's right.
saving money for my family. Yeah,
That's right.
maybe I will believe in it. And even if they
Yeah.
don't, they're subconsciously they are
Completely.
improving the world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a great
Yeah.
way to think about it.
Yeah. 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 Or somebody says, I wouldn't eat a vegan burger. And then you kind of go, how about I give you a steak mince that's 10 times cheaper than the steak mince you're getting now? Uh, and they go, well, I'll take that. And you go, okay, well, now we're talking.
Are you giving me little hints on your next business?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm too late. We've been looking at food for a while, but I think we're
Yeah.
too late, to be honest. I think
Mhm.
there are I think there are smarter, better people than us who've delivered on that. Unfortunately, I wish we were just too busy on the other stuff when the food thing was coming up. So we have a team looking at it, but I think we're too late. Yeah.
And Norman, how, in your experience, how do you find opportunities and gaps in the market? Because I'll tell you that I've dealt with hundreds of startups, and a lot of them sound like great ideas, but
Yeah.
it's hard to know if it's an actual opportunity. How do you know if it's going to be a proof of concept that's going to be adopted? Was that something from your business intuition, or did you do a lot of market research, competitive analysis, or was it just everything? How did you come up with these innovative, creative concepts and figure out and be confident that, you know what, this is going to be profitable and it's going to solve a problem?
Well, we're never confident. Yeah, the only time we're confident is after we sell it for $500 million.
Yeah.
When we're in it day to day, we're second guessing everything all the time, and we're completely paranoid. It's a mixture of, we mainly want to build cool shit, and we believe that if we build cool shit, then other people will like it as well. So it's either that. There are probably three things. Cool. Like, we're thinking, like, I'll give you an example. Solar in the home, right, is well understood. Like, Tesla have a great offering, blah, 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 right? But we wanted to install, so our energy business installs industrial scale solar, right? And it's fine, it's a good business, right? I don't think there's anything different with our industrial business than competitors in terms of solar. But I wanted to install solar in my house, right? And so I got a guy in, and I said, can you just bang some solar up on the roof? By the way, like, what happens during the day when it overproduces electricity? He's like, you might need a battery. And I was like, yeah, can I buy a battery off you? He's like, no. And I was like, okay, so I have to go to some other guy for the battery? Yeah. And then I was saying, and also when the battery is full, how do I get my car to automatically charge? You can't do that. And then, can I use the electricity automatically to heat my hot water, even if I've got spare energy? And he was like, no, I don't think so. And I was going, so I got another guy, and he was equally as bad. And then I was like, I'm going to get into this business because this sucks, right?
Yeah.
And so we set up a home solar business that's growing like crazy, that just answers all the questions that other people couldn't answer. And so what we always say is, think of a problem that ultimately 1 billion people would be affected by, and there are huge problems out there. Or think of a problem that's just really annoying, right? That you have, because if you have that problem, other people will have that problem too. I'll give you an example of one that we're not going to do anything about: air travel, right? Like, you go to the airport, you got to go there 4 hours early now, right? TSA, crawl up your ass, right? Then you get to wait in line everywhere, wait for everything, right? It's a nightmare, right? And like, sadly now, I think the airlines are going to pay the ultimate price for it, to be honest, because I think with COVID, we've discovered, like, look at you and I now. Like, traditionally, I would have said, hey, you look like an interesting guy. Next time I'm in Raleigh, let's go for a couple of beers, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have that itch anymore to scratch. Like, I'm chatting to you now. Yeah. If we grabbed a couple of beers, yeah, you got your coffee. If it was later in the day, we could grab a beer afterwards.
Right.
Like, it's, is it the same having a beer with you as having a beer with you in a bar? Not really. But is it 90% as good? Yeah. Or is it 80% as good? It's 80% as good, right?
And I'll tell you this, and with the technology that we have, I think Zoom's coming up with all these backgrounds. I can have a nice bar background.
That's right.
And then we're good to go, right?
Yeah. In fact, a couple of us during the proper lockdown, we had the exact same bar background. And after the second beer, I didn't give a shit whether I was with them in Dublin city centre or whether I was at home. And the other thing is, like, 11 o'clock, you're finished drinking, you just fall into your bed. No taxis, no messing, right? So, like, yeah, so back to the ideas. I think it's cool shit. How do the economics look? Is it a crowded space? What do we have to offer with the skill set that we have? And then they come together. And our problem is, we have too many ideas. Like we get 70 ideas before we get out of the shower in the morning, So
Yeah.
it really is, it's about filtering the ideas at this stage, more than anything else, to come up with the good ones. By the way, I know this is a cliche, but I don't think it's about the idea. I think it's about the execution of the idea.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Anyone can have an idea.
Yeah.
Anyone can
They can.
dream, right? But do those dreams
Yeah.
become reality? You have to put in the hard work and the strategy and everything incorporated into it to execute.
And by the way, that bit is, you were saying it in the beginning, that bit's crap most of the time. Like, you're selling to people who don't want to be sold to. You're trying to build your team, which is horrible, because for every amazing person you hire, you're going to hire people that are less than amazing, and then you got to make them become amazing or get rid of them. All that stuff sucks, right? And because you're having to let somebody go you've got a bit of a relationship with, and you don't want to let them go, but you have to let them go because you don't have any cash, and all of that is horrible, and then people say, well, it's fantastic when you sell the company and you can buy a yacht. It's not, because when you sell the business, you miss it because it's like one of your kids, and you miss it. You wish you never sold it. You wonder whether you could have got more money for it. So, I think you have to find a way, and I think I found a way to be happy in the shit, right? Because it's generally shit. And what we've learned over the years is just to be happy waking up in the morning and doing the stuff that's boring and a bit crappy.
Yeah, it's true. I know we were talking about LinkedIn a little bit before, and I put a post on LinkedIn about this, that you need to appreciate and embrace more of the process than the outcome. It's about the journey, not the outcome.
Yes.
And there's a lot of studies that are a lot of scientific studies that were made on the brain in regards to, are you happier when you actually achieve your outcome rather than be happy during the process? And there's not much difference, because what happens is when you, let's just say you sold your company for $1 billion. That's great. You're going to be happy for a little bit, or it's going to be in the brain. It's going to have, you're going to be, getting all this, I don't know the scientific
endorphins. You're getting endorphins.
Yeah. And essentially you're going to be happy for a little bit, but are you joyful? It's not long term. It's
even weirder.
It's instant gratification, right?
Yeah. They measured the endorphin levels of people gambling, and what they discovered was, you would have thought that peak endorphin was just at the point when you win, right? But actually, peak endorphin is just at the point when you lose. Not when you win, because when you win, you get an endorphin hit, but it's over almost immediately. And so likewise, it's very similar in business. The thing that I've learned is, and I never thought I'd say this, is I learned how to meditate about 3 or 4 years ago. I got Headspace.
That's great.
And I ended up meeting Andy Puddicombe, who founded Headspace, through a friend of a friend. And he's amazing, actually. But I learned to be happy. At 36 years old, I learned to be happy. And so I can, like every day, I sit in front of Zoom from 8 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the evening. And I work kind of 6 days a week, and I'm just happy all the time. Because it's mainly interesting shit, right? And sometimes you're giving out to people and having an argument, but even that, it's just, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you can be happy.
Yeah, you got to do what you love. I don't know how. Have you ever met other CEOs or business leaders that they're very successful, but they're doing things that they hate? And I wonder why they're doing that. Do you see them as happy, or no? Or do you see a difference? They're miserable.
Well, like I'm lucky enough to have met probably 20 billionaires in my life, and 2 of them were happy. Yep. The others were very concerned about how much money everyone else had, and who was doing what, and who was trying to steal from them, and all that shit, and
they're always wanting more and more, right? They're always wanting more and more. Yeah.
Not wishing to knock New York billionaires, but I've never met a happy New York billionaire. Those guys are completely paranoid.
I don't think I've met a happy New Yorker.
Some of them are chilled out. Yeah.
I hate to say that because my fiance is actually from New York, but it's okay. I can
There
tease
you
you.
go. There you go.
But
We had an office in New York in our previous business. I used to love going there because we would do some work during the day, but we always ended up in a really cool vodka bar by about 4 o'clock.
there's so much to do there. Yeah, it's a.
Yeah.
But you know what? When I go there, it's I think it's good to go there for a few days and maybe go have fun there. There's a lot to do, a lot to see, but it's very stressful. Like the environment,
Yes.
it's it's just too much. It's not.
It is too much.
I couldn't live there.
Yeah.
I don't know how people have the
No.
dream of living there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how would you want to live
Yeah.
there? It's very stressful.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Even I was there. I was there a couple of months ago before COVID, and I was running along Battery Park. Is it Battery Park? The one by the river, Hudson
Yeah.
Park, and it was like 8 o'clock in the evening, and people were running on conference calls, like, and so their lives were so busy that they couldn't even go out for a run without being on a call. And you're like, I think COVID has forced everybody to reassess, including me, reassess what the hell they're doing, and priorities. And I think that's been a good thing.
It's pretty much I think of it as a reset on the world.
Absolutely.
Us to reprioritize our lives and figure out what's important and what's not important, because you actually get time to think. You're not driving on the highway to go to work. You know how many people, especially here in the US, with all the traffic, they're spending hours per day on the road.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny one about that. So my life pre-COVID was a week in Ireland, a week in Europe, and then a week long haul. So long haul could have been Australia, US, South America, whatever. And that was my life for the last couple of years, right? And I didn't mind, kind of, and now I'm not going to fly for the rest of this year, even though we can. We just don't need to. But also I've become obsessed. Like our office, we have a very cool office, and it's about 12 minutes from where I live, and there's never any traffic, right? Because it's just too close. And I've become so obsessed now with the time wasted between travel and like flights and all that I get people to come up to the house for meetings. I'm kind of going, hang on, like if I'm going to meet you in the office, I got to go there and then I got to come back. So that's a half an hour. Whereas if you just meet me in my house, we can save another half an hour. And so your output just goes through the roof, And so you could not get me on a plane now for love or money, like no interest, And it's the same with our teams. Like we're just saying to them, find another way. Like don't get on that plane. Like find another way of closing that deal, And people do find another way of closing it, So
and
you can imagine I'm not investing in a lot of airline stocks at the moment.
I don't think anyone is, or cruise lines. I don't know what's going to happen with all these. There's so many things changing. There's going to be new emerging trends happening, and a lot of I think that this is my opinion. I feel like the last however so many years, I can't put a number on it, but at least the last 5, 10, maybe even more than 15 years, there was a huge lack of human element in business. People are very, it's just been very like, at least here where we are, it's been a lot of technology, but there's just so much automation happening and all this kind of stuff. And I think that with COVID, like we talked about, it's allowed us to reset and to regroup and think about what's important to us, like our families and our close friends and all of that. And I believe, I'm hopeful that the human element is going to be incorporated back into business where we can start trusting each other more, because before it was just very much about money, and power. And I'm hoping that will start to decrease because of all these challenges that everyone's going through, like holistically together. So,
it is. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on a lot of the reset. I think some people will still be obsessed with money and speed and pace and all of that kind of thing, So it's a nice thought. Yeah.
and Norman, with all the companies that you have built, and even now with your energy company, how are you scaling it? Because I found it, for me in growing Imagine Ovation, and all the companies I've spoken to, it's always very difficult to scale. And do you think scaling is really about the financial aspect of it, or is it more operational, or is it everything? Is it how did you scale your companies from zero to hundreds or thousands of people and still, I mean, I don't know your finances, but assuming you were profitable and you did sell them, how were you able to accomplish that?
Well, it's such a big question, right? So you
Yes,
can
yeah.
you can expand in a couple of ways. You can expand on by doing acquisitions, and by doing acquisitions is an entire skill set in itself that you could write a book on. It's about patience. It's about buying at the right price. It's about either buying at the right price or buying the right team, you know. And then if you're not growing by acquisition, you're growing organically. It's all about building the team, and building the team is a certain amount. It's about luck. A lot of people say it's about proper interviewing techniques. We've tried every interview technique known to man, and we still can't seem to get the right people through interviewing.
I agree. Yeah.
So the only solution we came up with is fire fast. So we have a 3-month probation period. We're communicating with the new person all during that probation period. Before they start, we warn them that this is our style. And then if they don't perform in the first 3 months, they're gone. And that has proven to us to be that and kind of the performance management that goes along with that is the best thing. But you got to have it, like so many aspects of business, you got to have huge courage, right? Because you got to communicate clearly what you want, and then all along the way, and then if it doesn't work out, you got to pull the trigger. And it's horrible. Firing somebody is the most horrible thing. The only thing worse than not firing somebody is having your business fail because you're too afraid to fire somebody, you know. And so that's one of the keys. But business is actually, there are so many things that you have to get right, from hiring, product management, marketing. Like, I learned more about marketing in the last 6 months than I knew my whole life, you know. Just because podcasting. But digital marketing has become so sophisticated now, and
Right.
HubSpot and LinkedIn and all of that. And it's taken a lot of the stupid guesswork out of selling, actually, which is fantastic. And I didn't know any of that up until this year, you know. My style up until then was fly on a plane, go and see a guy, do a deal. Whereas there's so much opportunity out there now with digital. And so, but yeah, I think if there was one thing about expanding and scaling is not easy, right? But if there was one thing, it's like, get a great team. How do you get a great team? Fire the not so good people really fast, and you'll eventually whittle down an amazing team. And you actually, as a CEO, you don't need that. Like, you need probably 4 lieutenants who are seriously good. And once you've got 4 lieutenants, then they need another 4, and they need another 4, right? But it's the one thing that I notice other companies doing a lot is tolerating mediocrity in their teams, and we just have no interest in that. And what happens then is, if you don't tolerate mediocrity, you get an amazing culture of just determination, goal-focused, hardworking people, and then just reward those people extremely well, because they are the alchemy, you know, because they will keep going, and they will do what you do, and therefore, why wouldn't you reward them for that? Right?
And you probably also look for a lot of integrity and accountability, right? You don't want to be able to hold their hand all, sometimes you've had employees where you always have to be on top of them. That's, for me, that's been the worst. It's someone that, once you know that they have the skills and they're trained, you can trust them that they're going to do their job. And yes, you have to manage them, of course. That's what managers are for. But you don't have to sit on top of them all the time. You know, it's just
But one of the key things I learned this year, we have a shrink in our company now, Simon, and so we got that clue from Billions, you know, that TV show.
Yeah.
So we decided to get our own shrink, and
that's cool.
Yeah, I know, and he's brilliant. He's amazing, actually. And I worked with him a lot this year on ways that I very subtly sabotage the business, right? So what are ways that my past and my upbringing caused me to sabotage something? And one of the things I learned from that is that the more secure you can get in yourself, which has to do with meditation and working with a shrink or whatever, then the better you are at delegating, because there's two ways of delegating. You can say, hey, Mary, I want you to take a glass and I just want you to fill that glass with water, right? Or that's one way of delegating, right? And then, like you said, you can sit on that person and say, is the glass full yet? You know, all that. Or you can go to Mary and you can say, Mary, I want you to solve the entire water problem for this company. And this is the effect that that's going to have on the company. This is the area I want. This is why I want you to do it. Now, I'm just going to check back with you in a month, but I trust that you're going to do that. Right? Now, there are two ways of delegating, right? One way, you don't have to speak to that person for another month. And then when they come back, they will either say it's solved, or they'll say, I fell at the first hurdle on day one, right? And then you can explore what happened there and you can try and fix that. But if we're still having the discussion about filling the water on month 3, then we're probably having a different discussion. So
right.
a lot of it goes back to who you are as the boss and how secure you are in yourself. Because the thing that makes us a shitty boss is us trotting out all the insecurities about us to the other people, right? So the more secure we can make ourselves, the more effective we're going to be.
Yeah, because you have to. They're going to look up to you.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to look up to the leader of the company.
Yeah.
So if let's just say the business, for example, let's just say the business is not doing well, and you're depressed and you're upset and all this, you don't want to show that in the office, right? Because then their productivity is going to go down, and
that's right.
You're going to lose a lot of good people, and then it's really going to tumble. You know.
And also, they're going to, they won't look up to you unless you're a secure person who's not looking for attention, who's not insecure, all of that kind of stuff. So it's, in one sense, it sounds simple. On the other hand, people spend years meditating up on top of mountaintops because they can't figure this out, right? So so it really isn't that simple. It's a life's work for most people.
Yeah. And Norman, with especially with this company and the past businesses, when you scale, and I'm talking more financially, do you have advice on, at least this is good advice for businesses that are already established and they are trying to scale and grow in sales and marketing and all that, but in order to hire people, do you think your sales should always exceed your expenses, or sometimes it doesn't work that way? Sometimes you're gonna have to make smart investments on people. Do you think your sales, your profits should always be higher? You should always have a buffer?
Yeah, it depends on how you're funding. So if it's a brand new idea and it's got deep intellectual property, then you need to get that funded separately, right? So then it's all about burn rate. It's about raising the money in and then making sure you don't burn it, right, too fast, obviously. And so, but then if you're self-financing, then obviously you can't overspend. But any decent person I've always hired, I've always worried that I can't afford them. And I've always lost a lot of sleep because I hired them, right? But like, if they're the right person, then they'll be paying for themselves very quickly. If they're the wrong person, get rid of them fast, right? But it is, and the other thing, one of the keys to that is hire the person you can't afford. So if you say, look, I need a salesperson and I can only afford $60,000 a year, well, can you imagine if you hired the right person on $120,000 a year? Like, can you imagine how much faster they would sell and how much better they would sell? But that doesn't mean the person on 120,000 a year is any good, right? And what I try and do is I try to spend a lot of time with the person before I hire them. So I try to hire people I can't afford, and then I find excuses to spend a lot of time with them before I hire them, right? There's a really good book called Who, and it talks about the hiring process, and it's a short book, but it contains all of the key things about hiring. But one of the things is, like, let's say you want to hire a new sales director. The failure rate on sales directors is notoriously high, especially nowadays, because you're looking for a sales director who has experience in digital marketing, but can get on with the client and also has technical expertise. Because before, you just needed a charming guy or girl who could take a guy out to dinner, right? but that day is gone. Nobody wants to go out to dinner anymore, right? So it's a mixture of technical expertise, numerically very astute, digital marketing capability. That's a tall order, right? So that person, even in a startup, is going to cost 150 to 300,000 bucks, right? So that's a big risky hire. So what we try and do is find an excuse to meet them, and then meet them again and meet them again. So go for drinks with them, go have a coffee, bring them in, get them to do a presentation for you, and let that process take 12, 14 weeks, right? And get to know them and see if you're friends with them, and they can work with the rest of the team. And any glitch in it, right? Like there's a mate of mine once said about checking references, right? He said, if you're checking somebody's reference, right, and nobody gives a bad reference, right?
No.
So, yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
And if the person giving the reference goes, there's just one little thing about them, right? That person you're hiring is a raving psychopath, right? Because the person is so bad that somebody giving a reference felt they needed to say something, right?
I remember once. I remember we hired someone years ago, and we called one of the references, and he says, "Yeah, no, he's perfect. He's really like, I have no problem. Never had an issue. Never." I'm just like, and we hired him, but it was it was. Yeah. We made our mistakes too many times. It's a part of the process. You just learn.
I think it's easy to say, but have high standards. Have high standards of yourself, and then insist that other people have those high standards as well, right? If you have high standards for yourself and respect your time, and then you demand that other people do exactly the same, then that solves a lot of problems,
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's easier said than done. And by the way, I don't think we're perfect at it. In fact, we're not perfect at it. Yeah.
We're always there's always a lot of room for improvement. Like, you just gotta learn from mistakes. Mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard a hilarious one about Elon Musk this morning on a podcast, actually, and they were testing the rockets, and anyway, the rocket, they were trying to land the booster, and it didn't land properly. It landed sideways. It was the world's biggest explosion, and he was going out looking at the wreckage with the board, and they were trying to be philosophical. They were saying, you got to learn from your mistakes. Look at Henry Ford and all these guys. And he just said, given the two options, learn from your mistakes or get it right, I'd rather just get the fucking thing right. And so I think it's philosophical that we can learn from our mistakes, but I'd much prefer not to make them in the first place. So, yeah.
Have you been able to meet Elon?
Yes. Yeah. I'm quite good friends with Richard Branson, and I'm less friends, but I've met Elon a couple of times. Yeah. And
how is he? How is he? Is he very is he warm, or just very black and white? And
he's warm, but he's mainly, his brain runs, the processor in his brain runs 4 times faster than mine. So, like, he's always got another idea. He's always busy. He's always focused, as he should be, actually. And he's got a heart of gold. And what amazes me about Elon is how people misunderstand him. When we look back at 50 years' time and say, this guy was one of the biggest reasons why climate change got sorted, one of the biggest reasons why we're a multi-planetary species. And then you say, and how did we treat that guy? And the answer is, we treated him like shit. Yeah. And any chance we got, we maligned him and made a joke out of him. That's a shocking indictment of the human race, right? I don't know, do you remember the Joe Rogan podcast where he smoked a joint?
Yeah.
So that was one of the most insightful podcasts I've ever seen. In fact, I thought his second podcast with Joe was better, but I thought that one was pretty insightful. And all people could talk about is how Elon smoked the joint in a state where it's illegal to smoke.
It was funny. It's legal to smoke. And I like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's I love it. I love watching this. It's funny.
Yeah. I think Joe's podcast could be shorter, but
but the people he gets on that show, and he's Joe is, I think he signed the deal with Spotify.
Yeah, 100 million allegedly. Yeah. That's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you'll be in another 3 or 4 years, you'll be selling this one for 100 million. Yep.
I wish. I love your confidence, but none of us are confident, right?
No, no, no. But it's the medium of the future, definitely.
It is,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
love it. It's good.
yeah.
Norman, what were some of the biggest challenges? And this, I really want to touch on this because I think people need to hear it. What were some of the most challenging struggles or obstacles that you went through in your career? I know the time of the $1 billion fell
Hmm.
through, but were there any really tough times where you felt, I don't want to do this anymore, or was it anything mixed,
Yeah.
personal or life or anything like that?
Look, every year I will lose 30 nights sleep over the business, right? Over one of our businesses. And so there is no easy year. And people look at it when you've made a bit of money, people think it's easier. It's not easier because it's not easier. And people say, well, it must be easier because in the end of the day, you'll always have money. But actually, when you have the lives of the people that work for you and you have that responsibility, like if we screw up in one of our businesses and we have to shut it down, then a whole load of people have to pay the mortgage and their healthcare the week after, and that's terrible, right? And that's
Yeah.
not acceptable. And and then it's every aspect of business comes into play, right? So when you're in your very first startup, it's selling is really difficult because you're really shit at selling. Then marketing is difficult because you don't understand marketing. And so it's every aspect. Selling your first business, raising money your first time, they're all things that you have to learn, and they're all difficult. And you can have mentors that will help you with some of it, or some of it comes naturally to you. But then the bits that don't come naturally to you are awful, and you will lose a lot of sleep over them, And in my view, there are two ways of making money, right? You can work for a corporation, and I know some very rich people who've just worked for corporations all their lives, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's stressful too, especially as you get
Yeah.
more senior. Or you can do startups, and startups are a real bitch, because they, like, my kids don't want to do startups because they see what it takes out of me, and they don't ever want to put themselves through that. And I like the fact that they don't want to ever put themselves through that. But it's a kind of disease that I don't think the entrepreneurial journey is entirely a healthy mental process. Um, you know, uh, it's like I'm here now in Ireland right now. It's 10 past 6 in the evening, and I'll do another 3 hours. Right? And I haven't needed to work since 1998. So is that an entirely healthy pastime? I should be hiking.
Do you ever take vacations? I'm sure you have to take some vacation, right?
I take vacations, but I work when I'm on vacation, and because I don't see what I do all day as work. I find our car business fascinating. I find our energy business fascinating. So I spend time with the family, and other than that, I work. And because I don't see work, like yesterday was Sunday. I worked from 11 until 6. And if you said to me, was that work? I was like, didn't feel like work to me. I was learning a bit about stuff. Yesterday, I was learning all about precision fermentation, right? And so
Interesting.
interesting, right? Which is going to feed half of the world in another 10
Oh my
years, right?
gosh.
And so is that work, or is that just, learning, right? Who knows?
It's a mix of both because it's going to impact your company, but it's also you're learning and
Yeah,
you're gaining knowledge.
yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
a win-win.
I think
It's
it's a
just,
win-win too. If you're
you just
sitting
have to
there
love
and
what you do. You got to love what you
yeah,
do.
you have to love what you do. Absolutely. And that's not just, people listening to the podcast might say, well, how do I find out what I love what I do, right? My answer to that, learn how to meditate, right? And then when you learn how to meditate, which only takes 8 days, and doesn't cost any money, then when you're meditating after 8 days, so when you've learned 20 minutes a day, 8 days, then ask what you love to do, right? And your own mind will answer the question what you like to do, and if you can do what you love, then it's not work, it's just it's a great way of passing the time. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I always ask this last question, okay? And this has to do with your story. So Norman, if you had to define your story in just one word, what would you say? What's your story in one word?
Let me just think
It could
about
be
that.
career, it could be life, whatever. I'll let you decide.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's a tricky one. One word is very tricky. um, Look, it's ultimately, yeah, one word to describe it, success. Yeah, yeah.
I thought you were gonna say courage.
Yeah, but, well, if you say what it takes to win, that's a different word. Yeah. If
Yeah,
you
that's true.
describe, yeah, we we have values in our group, and one of them is we are brave. Yeah. And
Mm,
people think that we take kind of crazy business risks, right? But that's not what it means. What it means is if you have to sit in front of somebody and tell them that they're not going to work in the company anymore, and you have to tell them that, but you also have to tell them the real truth why, which involves talking about them and their failings. That takes courage, right?
right. No, I
Or
agree.
yeah, and so yeah, what it takes to succeed. I would think courage is a good word. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good. Yeah, no, that's.
yeah.
I think that's yeah, it's interesting. Because maybe I'll start asking that. I like that too. But you know what? No, it's good because you define you've had a lot of success. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. And you've had success in your career, and that came with a lot of hard work and treating
Mhm,
people right and having integrity and just never
mhm,
giving up. So the ultimate definition of success for you. And some people, like for me,
yeah,
I think for me it would be perseverance. I
yeah.
just like to continue moving forward. I don't give up.
You have to persevere. You have to persevere. Nothing comes easy. Definitely not. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, and if nothing comes easy, then you might as well enjoy it. So I think the
that's so
the
true.
bigger key is figure out how to enjoy it because it's not going to come easy. You know? Yeah.
Figure out what you love. And I think that can sometimes be tough. I know a lot of people that struggle. They don't even know what they want to do in their 30s or 40s. They're like, I don't even know. Why am I working in this job right now? I don't, what do I do? What do I want to do? And I'm like,
Yeah.
you have to sit back and just, you're right, either pray and
Yeah.
meditate,
Yeah.
take a step back and breathe and figure out how get some mental space, like you said,
Yeah.
and get away from all the clutter and distractions. And I think you'll probably get a lot more
And that's a
clarity.
practice. If you're religious, then pray. But praying is a practice, right? If you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
I noticed that Muslims pray 8-10 times a day, right? And it allows them time to just get into their mind. And if you're Christian, we were raised Catholic, and we would say the Rosary. And the
Mm-hmm.
Rosary is 20 minutes. You say it every night. But guess what? The Rosary is a meditation,
Oh yeah.
and it teaches you how to be happy, but it doesn't teach you in 2 days. Like you need to keep at it every day, and it's like so many other things. You can't cheat the gym, and you can't cheat meditation.
Consistency. It's with everything. It's consistency.
Absolutely.
Every morning when I wake up, I do 30 or 40 push-ups. I go take a shower and I always pray every morning, first thing, every
Yeah,
morning.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
I've been doing it for over 10 years. It's just
yeah,
a
yeah,
consistent. So
yeah.
that
It's a
helps.
practice, and
Practice.
and in the world of winning in business, like you find, I don't know of anybody who's properly successful who doesn't have those practices. They're in the gym, they're meditating, or they're praying, whatever it might be. They're key to the whole thing. Like, you can get away with it for 10 years and you can sell a company and make a shit ton of money, but if you're going to do it for 30 years, you better have some tricks.
I wonder what Richard Branson's is like. You got to
He's got a
meet him.
couple.
He seems
He's
like
got a
such a
couple.
nice guy. A
Yeah,
very nice
he
guy.
meditates. He meditates a good bit. He does a lot of exercise. He manages his time very well. Yeah, and he has very high expectations. Yeah, so
Did he ever try
um,
to invest in any of your businesses,
we
Richard?
don't have a problem. My relationship with him is a non-investor one. We don't have. Thankfully, we don't have a problem with getting investors. Richard, it's more we are aligned on things like climate change and what needs to happen in the world. So
That's good.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Awesome.
Hey, listen,
Well,
it's been good to chat.
yeah, no, it was great. Thank you so much. And where can everyone find you? I know you're on LinkedIn, you said, and if you want to
Yeah,
talk about your
I'm on
LinkedIn website.
LinkedIn, definitely. I'm on Twitter, Norman Crowley 1. I'm on, our website is coolplanetgroup.ie. So we're headquartered in Ireland, so it's coolplanetgroup.ie. Yeah. Or
Fantastic.
crowleycarbon.com is our energy division. So, yep, and happy to chat to people. Yep.
That's good. Well, Norman, I really appreciate it, man. This has been amazing, and it's been honestly one of my favorite interviews. I've learned a lot from this as well. So this is cool, and you're
Thank
the
you.
first Irishman I think I have interviewed. So
Yeah.
yeah, we popped that cherry, so that's good.
We're good fun. We
There
drink
you
a lot of
go.
Guinness. Yep.
No, yeah, absolutely. But no, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Very, very honored and humble for you to take the time and speak with me. And thank you, everyone. Yeah, thanks for
Keep
listening.
the faith.
And yeah,
Keep on hustling. Yeah.
I will, definitely will. And I know people will learn from this episode as well. So, but yeah, I appreciate Norman, and thank you everyone for listening. This is your host, Michael Giorgio from Tales from the Pros. And until next time, thanks, guys. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also follow our social media. There are links somewhere around here, but we really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all the support, and I'm going to be giving you awesome content continuously, and we look forward to seeing you soon.